My sister grabbed a cake knife at her own baby shower and pointed it straight at my pregnant stomach, screaming that those babies were hers, not mine. The room froze. When I told her to calm down, she stepped closer and hissed that I had stolen her life, her future, and the children that were meant for her. I stood there shaking, 8 months pregnant, while no one knew whether to scream or run. Security took the knife away. She broke down crying, and the incident was dismissed as stress and jealousy. That was 9 months ago. Last week, police called me about a storage unit rented in her name. Inside was a fully furnished nursery, 2 cribs, baby clothes, feeding schedules, and my twins' names painted on the walls. She'd been visiting almost daily, telling staff she was preparing for her babies. In that moment, I realized the knife wasn't a breakdown. It was a warning. I never thought I'd be writing this, but after what happened, I need to get it out somewhere. I'm using a throwaway because parts of my family are on Reddit, and honestly, I'm scared. This happened about a year ago, when I was 8 months pregnant with twins. For context, my sister and I used to be close. Not best friends, but close enough that I trusted her. She's 3 years older than me. Growing up, she was always the golden child. Better grades, louder personality, always knew what she wanted. I was the quieter one, the one who followed rules, the one people assumed would have a boring life. She always wanted kids, like obsessively wanted kids. Baby names picked out in high school, Pinterest boards before Pinterest was even popular, always talking about when I'm a mom. But life didn't go the way she planned. A broken engagement. Then I got pregnant. It wasn't planned. My husband and I were shocked, terrified, and then overjoyed. When we found out it was twins, my entire family exploded with excitement. Everyone except my sister. At first, she acted supportive. She came to appointments, touched my stomach without asking, joked about how she was basically their second mom. Some of it made me uncomfortable, but I brushed it off. I told myself she was just excited. I told myself I was being hormonal. The baby shower was her idea. She insisted on hosting it. She picked the theme, she picked the colors. She even vetoed some of the gifts people brought because they weren't practical. Looking back, there were so many red flags, but hindsight is cruel like that. The day of the shower, I remember feeling strange, heavy, not just physically, but emotionally. The room was full: family, friends, balloons, pastel decorations, and a huge cake shaped like 2 baby onesies. Everything was fine: laughter, gifts, photos. Until it wasn't. At some point, my sister disappeared into the kitchen. I didn't notice at first. I was opening gifts, smiling for pictures, trying to ignore the fact that my back was killing me. Then I heard her scream my name. I looked up, expecting something silly. Instead, she was standing in the doorway holding the knife cake. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. My brain literally couldn't process it. She was shaking, eyes wide, breathing fast. The knife wasn't down by her side, it was raised. And then she pointed it directly at my stomach. The room went silent. No music, no chatter, just this awful, suffocating quiet. She started yelling, not crying, yelling, saying that those babies were hers, that I had no right, that I stole her life, her future, the children that were meant for her. She took a step toward me, the knife shaking in her hand, and I felt my entire body lock up. I was 8 months pregnant. I couldn't run. I couldn't even stand properly. I remember saying, "Please calm down," in the smallest voice imaginable. That's when she leaned closer and whispered, hissed, that I'd taken everything from her. No one moved. No one screamed. We were all frozen, watching, waiting to see if she would take another step. And that's where I'll stop for now, because what happened next changed everything. I keep replaying that moment in my head, the way the knife caught the light, the way my sister's hands were shaking, the way the room felt like it had lost all oxygen. People always ask later, why didn't anyone do something? The truth is, no one knew what to do. My mother stood up so fast her chair fell backward. My aunt started crying. Someone dropped a glass and it shattered, but no one even flinched. All eyes were on my sister. She took another step toward me. I remember gripping the edge of the table behind me, my stomach tight, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. My husband moved in front of me without thinking, hands raised, telling her to put the knife down. His voice cracked, and that terrified me more than anything else. I had never heard him sound afraid before. She laughed. Not a funny laugh, a sharp, broken one. She said we were all acting like she was the crazy one. She said she had been patient, that she had waited, that everyone knew those babies were supposed to be hers. Then she started crying. Not quietly. She collapsed to her knees, still holding the knife, sobbing about how unfair life was, how she did everything right and still ended up empty-handed. The shift was so sudden it gave me whiplash. That's when security rushed in. The venue had a security guard near the entrance. Someone must have finally snapped out of it and called for help. 2 guards approached slowly, talking to her like she was a frightened child. One of them gently took the knife from her hand. The second the knife was gone, the tension broke. People rushed to me. My mother hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. Someone grabbed water. Someone else kept asking if I was okay, over and over, like saying it enough times would make it true. My sister sent me a long message. She apologized. She said she was embarrassed and ashamed. She promised she'd start therapy. She promised she would give me space. And for a while, she did. She didn't come to the hospital when I gave birth. She didn't push to visit. She didn't comment on photos. My parents said it was a good sign, that she was respecting boundaries. But there were things I couldn't ignore. She knew the twins' feeding schedule before I told anyone. She asked detailed questions about their sleep patterns. She corrected me once when I casually mentioned a nickname. She said, "No, that's not their name," and then laughed it off like a joke. I started locking my doors. I told myself I was being paranoid, that trauma makes you see monsters where there are none, that my sister was sick, not dangerous. 9 months passed. Life moved forward. Sleepless nights, diapers, bottles, survival mode. Then, last week, my phone rang. It was the police. They asked if I was related to my sister, and that was the moment my stomach dropped, because people don't call the police for stress and jealousy.
When the police asked me if I was related to my sister, I couldn't answer right away. My mouth went dry. My hands started shaking so badly I had to sit down on the kitchen floor. The twins were napping in the other room, and for the first time since they were born, I felt something worse than exhaustion: fear. The officer told me they had found something that belonged to her and needed to ask a few questions. He kept his tone calm, professional, but there was an edge to it, like he was carefully choosing what not to say. They asked if my sister had keys to my house, if she had ever watched the babies alone, if she had access to any documents with my children's names. Each question felt heavier than the last. I asked them what this was about. There was a pause. Then he said, "Ma'am, your sister has been renting a storage unit for several months. The staff contacted us because of concerning behavior." My heart was pounding so loudly I could barely hear him. He explained that employees noticed her coming almost every day, sometimes twice a day. She stayed for hours. She talked to the staff. She brought groceries. Once she complained that the air conditioning wasn't working properly because newborns are sensitive. That alone would have been strange. But then one employee looked inside the unit. The police asked if I could come down to the station. I didn't bring the babies. I didn't tell my parents. I just drove, gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers hurt. The entire time my mind kept trying to rationalize it. She's grieving. She's coping in a weird way. It's probably nothing. I was wrong. They showed me photos first. At a glance, it looked like a nursery showroom. Soft lighting, painted walls, rugs, shelving. But this wasn't a store. It was a storage unit. Inside were 2 cribs, fully assembled, matching blankets, stuffed animals, a rocking chair, diapers, bottles, formula, a whiteboard on the wall with the feeding schedule written in neat handwriting. Morning, afternoon, night. My stomach flipped when I recognized the schedule. It was my twins. The officer kept talking, but my ears were ringing. I felt like I was underwater. Then he showed me the last photo. The wall. My twins' names were painted on it. Not nicknames, not Baby A and Baby B. Their full names, spelled correctly, in the same font my sister used on the invitations for the baby shower. I started crying before I realized it was happening. Loud, ugly sobs I couldn't stop. I kept saying she pointed a knife at me, over and over, like it was the only sentence my brain could still form. The officer asked if my sister had ever threatened to take the babies. I told him about the baby shower, about the knife, about how everyone said it was stress and jealousy, about how I let it go because I didn't want to destroy my family. He nodded slowly. Then he said the sentence that still keeps me awake at night. She told the staff she was preparing for her babies. She said she'd be bringing them home soon. Soon. I asked how long the unit had been rented. 9 months. Almost exactly 9 months. The same amount of time since the baby shower. The same amount of time since she stood in front of me with a knife and said those babies were hers. I asked why the police were only calling now. They said the staff grew suspicious when she started asking about noise complaints, when she asked if crying could be heard through the walls, when she requested privacy because newborns are sensitive. I left the station numb. I didn't go home right away. I sat in my car staring at nothing, realizing something terrifying. That knife wasn't a breakdown. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was practice. And whatever she was planning, she believed she was running out of time.
I didn't go home that night. After leaving the police station, I drove aimlessly for nearly an hour before pulling into a grocery store parking lot. I sat there with the engine off, phone in my lap, staring at my reflection in the dark windshield. I kept thinking about the twins asleep in their cribs, completely unaware that someone else believed they belonged to her. Not wanted, not loved, owned. The police advised me to stay somewhere safe until they finished questioning my sister. They said it gently, but the meaning was clear. They were no longer treating this as harmless behavior. I called my husband and told him everything. There was a long silence on the line. Then he said something that made my stomach twist even tighter. She knew things, he said, things we never told anyone. Once he said it out loud, everything snapped into focus. The feeding schedule, the nap times, the names painted perfectly from memory. This wasn't fantasy built from afar. This was observation. The next morning, detectives came to our house. They walked through every room, taking notes, asking questions. One of them asked if we had cameras. Another asked about spare keys. Another asked when we'd last changed our locks. Then they showed us a timeline. My sister hadn't just rented the storage unit 9 months ago. She'd been preparing for it before the twins were born, buying furniture in stages, storing bags of baby clothes sorted by size and season, keeping receipts, keeping lists. One list made my hands go cold. It was titled Transition. Under it were bullet points: legal documents, quiet removal, adjustment period. No confusion. I asked the detective what quiet removal meant. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he asked if my sister had ever offered to babysit alone, if she'd ever suggested giving us a break, if she'd ever complained that the babies were too attached to me. She had, more than once. They told us she'd also been researching things online: legal custody laws, infant bonding disruption, how long it takes for babies to forget a primary caregiver. She'd joined parenting forums under fake names. She referred to herself as mom in private messages. She wasn't pretending to be pregnant. She was pretending to be me. That afternoon, the police finally spoke to her. She didn't deny the nursery. She didn't deny the names. She calmly explained that she was correcting a mistake, that the universe had chosen the wrong sister, that I was temporary, that the babies would adapt, because babies always do. When asked about the knife at the baby shower, she said something that made the detective stop writing. I needed her to understand it was serious. That's when they officially classified me and my children at risk. My parents were devastated. They cried, they apologized. They said they never imagined it could go this far. But apologies don't erase 9 months of preparation. They don't erase a room built for stolen children. That night, we installed new locks, cameras, motion sensors. We told daycare. We told neighbors. We handed out photos. And still, I couldn't shake one thought. If the storage unit hadn't been discovered, if no one had looked inside, how much longer would she have waited? Because she wasn't acting impulsive anymore. She was waiting for the right moment.
I wish I could say there was a dramatic arrest, sirens, handcuffs, closure. The truth is worse. What finally stopped her wasn't rage or desperation. It was timing. 2 nights after the police classified us as at risk, one of our new exterior cameras sent an alert to my husband's phone at 2:17 a.m. Motion detected. He checked it half asleep, expecting a cat or a passing car. Instead, he saw my sister. She was standing across the street, just outside the camera's night vision range, watching our house. Not pacing, not crying, just standing there. The timestamp showed she'd been there for 46 minutes. When police arrived, she didn't run. She didn't argue. She calmly told them she was checking to make sure everything was ready. Ready for what? She had a bag in her car. Inside, diapers, bottles, pacifiers, printed copies of our twins' birth certificates, and a handwritten note addressed to me. The note said, "You've had enough time. They won't remember this part. I will take good care of them." That was the moment something inside me broke completely. She was arrested that night, not for the nursery, not for the knife, but for attempted abduction and stalking. The evidence finally connected into something undeniable. During her evaluation, she admitted she'd set a date. She was waiting for the twins to reach an age where they could be transitioned without long-term damage. Her words, not mine. She believed she was being merciful. A restraining order was issued immediately. She's now under psychiatric care and facing charges that my family still struggles to say out loud. My parents are in therapy. So am I. So is my husband. The twins are too young to remember any of this. And that's the part that haunts me the most.
Because if one employee hadn't looked into that storage unit, if one staff member hadn't trusted their instincts, if one camera hadn't been installed in time, my children wouldn't remember me either. I'm sharing this for one reason. If someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. The knife wasn't a breakdown, it was a warning, and warnings don't always come twice. If you made it this far, thank you for staying with me through this story. If this shocked you, disturbed you, or made you feel something, that's why I shared it. Please like this video so more people see it. Comment your thoughts below, I read every single one, and subscribe if you want more real, unsettling stories like this, told in full, without cutting away from the truth. Because sometimes the scariest stories aren't fiction, they're family.